A use after free happens when you probably know that memory is not freed normally in Windows or in any other general purpose operating system. So if you store something in memory, when time comes for it to be freed, it's just marked as free, and any other process can use that memory area for its purposes. But that doesn't mean that it becomes clear for some reason. It's not zeroed out. It's just marked as free, and everything that is contained in this memory area, in these memory pages, is available to the process that claims access to this memory, and any process can do that because it's free. Okay, it can be used by anyone. So this vulnerability happens when there is some interesting, some sensitive data stored in the memory areas that can be reused by other applications. So let's say there is some cryptographic materials like private keys or pre-shared keys or security passwords that are stored somewhere, and this area is not freed, is not filled in with zeros when it becomes available to other processes. So in this way, the security of this data can be compromised. Heap corruption, heap overflow, type confusion, these are different other ways to exploit memory corruption bugs, and I will give you the link in the notes to this section in order to read through more detailed description of these memory bugs. But for now, let's focus on how to prevent that, how Windows deals with making this happen rarely, or at least less frequently as it was in the 90s. Okay, so there are these two really strong additions to Windows security architecture, which are potentially able to prevent all sorts of old bugs in Windows, but unfortunately they are not normally used by software developers. They're becoming to be used more and more, but still not all software developers pay enough attention to enabling these options during compiling of the products, and there are different reasons for that. So, for example, DEP stands for Data Execution Prevention, I guess. Yeah. So, as I said, there are different segments of memory available to each process. There are data segments and there are code segments. So, by rewriting stack, for example, you are operating over the data segment, right? So you're filling in a value of a variable, okay? And by simply marking this area in the memory by a flag, yeah, that this is not executable and should not be executed at any point of time, rewriting the stack, the instruction pointer doesn't give you anything, because you have rewritten the pointer and it now points to some point in data segment, yeah, but this address will not be executed because it's marked with DEP. Okay, so this is the basic concept. And what is ASLR? When you are trying to exploit memory corruption bugs, you have to put your executable data. That sounds ridiculous, but that's what it is. Yeah, your executable data should be placed somewhere, and in order to jump there, yeah, you have to use some instructions that are already in memory. Yeah, so you cannot just put some. You cannot just magically figure out where this instruction of jump to the contents of a specific register in the processor, yeah, at any given time. So you have to like run this program that you're trying to exploit in a virtual environment and try to debug it to the point where you know that, yeah, there is this specific DLL that is loaded by default somewhere, yeah, by some address in memory. You can access it, and there is this jump instruction that says, I don't know, jump EIX, yeah, so EIX contains an address, and you have put your address of your crafted piece of code there, and then just rewrite the instruction pointer by the address of this already existing instruction in memory, yeah, in the already loaded DLL that says jump there. Okay, so that's what you can do, what you do during buffer overflow exploitation, for example. So you have to know where it is. What ASLR does, it prevents code from loading to the same areas of memory. So every time you are booting Windows, its components, for example, that are normally compiled with ASLR functionality, they are loaded to different randomly assigned areas in memory. And this is really cool. Yeah, so this is quite reactive, but thinking of that was really interesting point. Yeah, and they have implemented that, and kudos for Microsoft. This is a really nice prevention strategy they have taken, and it works out. But sometimes it's just not enabled by developers for some reason. I don't know why. But sometimes using ASLR basically breaks their software. So their software is historically so reliant on its different parts being located in specific statically addressed areas of memory that they just cannot do that. And basically you cannot prevent this program from running in your system because this is really deliberate. Yeah, so each program freely decides whether it uses or not these two very cool features. Yeah, there are ways to force that, but in this way you won't be able to use your favorite programs. So there is always this trade-off. You either use secure code that is compiled with these flags and it uses ASLR and it uses DEP, and DEP and ASLR both do not break its functionality, or you just use it without protection or decide not to use that. Okay, so I hope this is not a complete mess in your head right now. If these concepts are new to you, I really recommend one of the courses on Coursera. I will link them in the notes for this video. This really puts every bit of data I've just provided in order, yeah, and it's totally recommended for you if you pursue the career in penetration testing and want to know more about software security, the concepts, the tools, the techniques, and the theory behind that. Okay, a little bit about what you will use when you will do this binary or memory exploitation. Okay, I just call it binary because there is this totally different area of web applications that are more prevalent on the internet right now, but binary is still the thing. It's cool, it has its air. Reversing community, code reversing community is really wide, and they have a lot of expertise. So the things they use are different debuggers. So there are free ones and there are the ones for money. IDA Pro, for example, is one of the commercially available tools, and it's really cool. Most of binary hackers use that. It's very popular in the reversing community. But there are also cool free tools that you can start from. For example, only DBG and the Immunity Debugger are both running for Windows, I guess. Yeah, only on Windows. And GDB is GNU debugger, I guess, and it's running on both Windows and Linux. Yeah, for different purposes, because the x86 architecture is the same. Yeah, when you're running Windows or Linux. So actual concepts, the very low level principles of execution are the same, but there are different compression and compilation formats, and the binary is not the same on different platforms, but the tools can be tweaked, and Windows tools are running good for debugging Windows binary code, and Linux tools do the same for Linux binary code. Okay, there are a lot of existing exploits in Metasploit. Yeah, so Metasploit contains a lot of useful stuff, and exploits are maybe the most useful part of it. So for existing vulnerabilities, for vulnerabilities already found and most probably already patched, there are a lot of exploits in Metasploit. You can download Metasploitable, yeah, the special distribution of Linux created just for these purposes, and start using Metasploit for that. And there is no specific Windows distro for that, but just getting a hold of some early release of Windows XP will give you an idea. Okay, so what a mess it was, and how cool actually is Vista in terms of security compared to Windows XP. Okay, because a lot of code has been just rewritten from scratch, and a lot of memory bugs are just not possible in Windows Vista and the later versions. And there are, of course, some vulnerabilities that are not covered by Metasploit, and most probably won't be anytime soon. Yeah, so there are public exploits that are just not there. No one has written a module for Metasploit that implements this specific exploit, or there are also bugs that are private. Yeah, so nowadays bug hunting and bug trading, vulnerability trading, is really a form of getting money in a quite legal manner. So it's not breaking the law in many jurisdictions. Yeah, so there are companies that are just buying privately the exploits on the market, and the price is really good. You know, there are companies that are buying exploits, buying vulnerability information for their own products. Yeah, so Apple is buying for a really lot of money, and Microsoft, yeah, they pay a lot too. But of course, since Microsoft has a long history of remote exploitation, their price tags are significantly lower. But just to give you an example, if you find a straight-through exploitation in iOS, like from user visiting a URL in the browser, and then you exploit the browser, then you get out of the sandbox and you exploit the iOS, and you get to ring 0, this can amount in more or less $1 million. Okay, so this is a lot of money. And if you will circumvent local privileges of a process, yeah, if you increase your privileges to a super user in Windows, this can amount in tens of thousands. Okay, so it's like 50-60 grand of money paid by Microsoft or someone in the market. Yeah, and about someone in the market, this is an interesting part. These bugs are traded, not freely, but there are some so-called vulnerability brokers that are just buying this stuff from the market. These are normally security consulting firms that provide the services to state powers. Yeah, so these are really cool bugs that are then implemented, are then included in their products, in their modern internet weapon, or what, I don't know how it's called nowadays. But yeah, there are guys that explicitly build their business model on finding bugs themselves and buying the bugs from the open market. Okay, so the more you dig into this industry, the more different fascinating things you will find. So for now, let's wrap it up about Windows security overview and get to the actual ways of circumventing security controls in Windows operating system.